What's going on, squad? It's another wonderful day here at a Brodacious Live. What's going on, Dr. J? How was your week this week?
Hey, man, my week was absolutely fantastic. I mean, we did some great things. I smoked a chicken. I smoked some pork. Yeah, dude, it was awesome.
Fantastic.
Tell me
Um,
about your weekend, though, because I hear you did some great things.
I'm going to record a whole episode on it and just kind of be like a bonus episode later in the week. But we had an absolute time down on the Gulf Coast, Mississippi Gulf Coast, one of the most underrated spots to visit. And I'm going to do a whole episode on everything that we did for this weekend, and just kind of maybe encourage you to have the same weekend that we hit, because we did it all under $1,000. But then again, there are some extra expenses that I have to have because I have a monstrous family.
You do. You got like a whole baseball team, man.
So that'll be a whole nother episode I'm going to record this week as some bonus content. But Dr. J, you've got some fantastic conversation for us today. Today, we're talking about overcoming the barriers to self-improvement. So what are the barriers to self-improvement, Dr. J?
Yeah, and I'll just get on here and start by saying, if you finish and you listen through this episode, we're going to tell you what the barriers are, but then we're both going to turn around and give you some ways to overcome these barriers or self-improvement. So if you're listening out here, make sure you get all the way to the end of this episode, because we want to help you to overcome those. So here's my list, and then I'll be interesting, Chef, to see what you see from your side of things. So here are what I feel are barriers. Now, first off, self-improvement. So we understand self-improvement is anything that helps you get from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. Again, where you want to be today to where you're at tomorrow. I would give you a little challenge before you dig too much further in. Ask yourself, do you know what your life is supposed to look like down the road? I'm in a course right now, a mastermind, if you will, and I got asked that same question this past week, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Have I ever actually written out what I want my life to look like? And then, if that's my self-improvement, what are the barriers? And that's what we're talking about today. So I'll jump right into it. Here we go. Number one, I think a huge one is procrastination. Huge one is procrastination. And I actually found an article, and if you subscribe to our newsletter, I'll even link the article so that you can go back and read it at brodaciouslife.com. You'll see the newsletter. Join it free. We'll shoot you out this info so you can fact check us and find all the stuff. But the article states that procrastination is when we realize that we have a path, but for whatever reason, we can't seem to get on it. I mean, have you ever experienced a time like that in your life where you knew the path, you just didn't want to get on it, or you lacked something? Have you ever been there?
It's a middle child syndrome. You
That's funny.
know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, that's something that you're supposed to do something, but you will literally push it off all the way until the night before.
If it makes you feel any better, oldest child syndrome is when you don't even know what the right choice is. You just, like a bull, go charging at it, and then you knock whatever it was over to realize you knocked over a goal. It just wasn't your goal. It was some other thing. So busy charging at something, you never checked to see if it was the right thing to charge toward. So, hey,
yeah.
Well, look, I was looking at a cause. So people say, well, yeah, procrastination is easy, but let me tell you what causes procrastination. And it's a huge barrier to self-improvement. And that is called analysis paralysis. And what analysis paralysis is, it's when you get so educated on a subject that you have analyzed not just why this is good for your life, but you've analyzed every possible way why you yourself can't achieve it, can't succeed at it. And you've analyzed the situation so much that now you lack the ability, because real life is chance. Real world is risk. I buy a house, my house can get hit by a plane tomorrow. I mean, there's all kinds of things. It's like the people who never fly on a plane because they read a stat about planes crashing. They obviously didn't read the one that it's the safest form of transportation that there is. But analysis paralysis, I experience that all the time, actually. What say you about analysis paralysis?
Analysis paralysis is something that, everybody, we have a desire to be loved. We have a desire to be accepted. So analysis paralysis really kicks in when we're kind of in that mode of, I want everyone to like what I do.
Yep.
For us on this YouTube channel and our podcast, we know everything's not perfect, but we want to make sure that we're not getting stuck in analysis paralysis and moving forward. And we're hoping that every day that we're making our podcast just 1% better every day. Doesn't have to be 15, doesn't have to be 50. Every time we do an episode, Dr. J and I are working on making everything 1% better every single episode that we do.
Oh yeah, I'm
So
gonna talk about that in a little bit. 1%. You beat me to the
fantastic.
point, man.
Oh my God. No, I don't mean to do that.
Oh my goodness. Look, I'll get
So,
to my second one.
okay,
My
go for
second
your
one
second
is in, what'd you say?
No, go for the second one.
Yeah, man. My second one is indecision. And here's the difference,
Okay.
because you're like, that's procrastination. No, it's not. It's not the same thing. So procrastination is knowing the right choice and just not doing it. And indecision now is when you're faced with multiple options, maybe multiple good options,
Yeah.
and you just don't choose any of them. And you can't move forward because you never take a step. And indecision, I think, is a big one in today's society. Everything in life is not black or white, good, bad. I have learned through my life, and I think it's true with most millennials out here, that we have figured out that there is a variety of good options, but because they're so good, we have analysis paralysis, and therefore it leads to indecision. We never make a choice. And I don't know about you, but I think I know 4 reasons, and I'll give you the 4 reasons that I think
Okay.
the indecision sets in. All right. First off, all 4 reasons are caused by a fear of failure. And I think fear of failure is caused by, number 1, and I'm gonna go where it's at. Number 1 is parental influence. I think how people are raised, and if you're a parent, we're all parents right now.
Yeah.
You cannot raise a kid that can suffer from indecision. I think it's a learned behavior. The second thing is perfectionism. And I think, you talked about middle child syndrome. Look, older child syndrome, feeling responsibilities, always trying to be perfect. And then one day
This
you
is
wake
my
up.
firstborn child to a T.
What'd you say?
My firstborn Eliza, she struggles with perfectionism. She has to have
Yeah,
everything
Nathan
perfect
does too. My
in a
firstborn.
box.
Yeah, look, seriously, and then number 3 is people pleasing. I have a fear of failure because what if I make this choice and I don't please the people, even though I know it's the right choice? I'm too busy trying to please people. And the 4th one is knowledge and education. And knowledge is power, but knowledge can also take away your power too. Now that's sometimes you can educate yourself out of a good thing. I mean, you can
Yes.
have somebody trying to educate you, but the education is not the right information.
Yeah.
I've got one more, but what are your thoughts on this?
No, I completely agree. People pleasing is a big one for me. Again, I think some of it kind of plays into my middle childness. I always joke, that's always my joke. My wife, she's a firstborn. She's kind of like Dr. J, and my oldest daughter, she's headstrong to the T. She is their perfectionist. They got to have everything perfectly in the square. When she's coloring, everything had to be perfect. When she's getting dressed, or any projects that she's working on, they both will work themselves to death to make sure that it is perfect. Me, I like to be a people pleaser. I like to be liked, and it was a hard thing for me when I was a leader to not be a people pleaser, but to do what was going to be best for the whole team. And when COVID came along, that was even tougher to really do, because we had to make really tough decisions. And it was some things that I knew that people weren't going to like, but it was the right decision to do. And it probably saved, the company that I was working with at the time, was to make that decision and, do the cuts that we needed to do on our paychecks. That way we can all stay hired. It was the right decision to make. I still stand by it today. But again, I wanted to be a people pleaser, and I wanted everybody to have everything. And then knowledge and education is something that I actually come across with a lot in our restaurant world. The chefs, that I work with, they're really talented. They've learned so much. And then sometimes in that education, they get so built up, and I'm a victim of it as well, that I don't think about the very basics. Oh, well, if I make this and I make that and I charge this rate, and everyone's just going to come in here and buy it because it's delicious. Well, yes, you've got all the numbers are there, but are you putting too much into it? Are you really just being simple about it, and then asking your customers, are you going to buy this if I make X? That sounds like a silly concept, but it's one of those things where you can easily overeducate yourself out of business if you're not actually listening to what customers are actually asking to basically give you their money for.
No, I think that's huge. I mean, and knowledge and education is important. You and I both, we support and promote knowledge and education,
Oh, for sure.
but knowledge and education without action is meaningless. I can have all the
Yeah.
knowledge, but if I don't have the courage to act on it, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Um, I got one more, and then these are my barriers, and then I'd be interested after I give you this one to hear what your barriers are, and then we can talk about overcoming them. But so comfort zones. I think a huge thing is that people sometimes get into a comfort zone. And here's what a comfort zone is. This is when a person isn't even looking for another option because they're just comfortable right where they're at. I mean, why do I need to change? My life is okay. Everything is all right. And they miss an entire world of opportunities of
Yeah.
success and happiness and family and love. And their faith never goes stronger because they're like, well, my current level is okay. So again, we got procrastination, indecision, and comfort zones. And I will tell you this, just a couple things that I throw out there. If you go back and listen to our episode 4, it's understanding personal energy with a Gail. That is a huge one because I think understanding your personal energy is a lot about helping you get out of your comfort zone. And then personal 8, understanding head trash. This was a great one that you did with a guest. And I think the name was Renee or Rennie.
Renee.
And am I saying it right?
Renee Cavallari.
Renee Cavallari. I mean, just a
She was
huge one of
awesome.
getting over
Yes.
your head trash, getting through that funk.
Yes.
And there's an entire, those
Great
are 2
book.
episodes. Their entire thing are 2 great starting points for overcoming barriers to self-improvement. Now, I will talk about overcoming those, but what from your perspective, what are some barriers that you see to self-improvement?
The first one for me is selling myself short. I think that's one of those things where I have all of the ability to do those things in real life, but am I really setting my goals high enough for myself? It shouldn't just be, well, I want to save, I don't know, $10,000 to put away. It should be, I could put away $20,000. I need to
Right.
be able to give, I want to do more charity work. You know, I want to give above what I give for my tithe. My tithe is something that I've really been focusing on because that's one of those things, you know, if for a church, that's one of those things that as a Christian, you're supposed to do. The pastor shouldn't be asking you to do. You should be giving in faith every single week. And that is part of your faith. And you're not really being faithful if you are not giving faithfully. And that's something that I've struggled with. And I'll be 100% honest. I've not been really good about, but I want to go above and beyond that. I want to go more into donating of time and money as well. And I really wanted to set my goal higher this year than I ever have before, and going above, you know, the normal 10% and moving myself up to an extra 5% that I'm going to give towards charity and different things in my community. I just find that very important, but it all comes down to, have I been selling myself short? And that goes into your professional life, that goes into your personal life, and obviously over into your spiritual life. Are you keeping yourself motivated and setting the goals high? Because you could do anything that you set your mind to. Remember the concept of yet that we talked about this past week. I have not achieved that yet. It's not I have not achieved it, period. It is I have not achieved it yet, but I'm going to do A, B, C. I'm going to give up my Starbucks. You know, I'm going to give up my Chick-fil-A stops, which that's 3 times a week for me. I love Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is my crack. I
God's
love
chicken.
that sweet tea. It's God's chicken, man. They do a great job. But my next barrier is keeping my 5 F's in check and understanding, you know, what's important in life. And that's a big barrier for me. I get so caught up in my world in some ways that I'm not being reflective on, you know, should I even give one of my, you know what, F's about that? And sometimes I get so involved in drama or things that are going around that it doesn't deserve it. It doesn't fall into my 5F pyramid. So why am I caring about it? Why am I getting involved in it? I just need to focus on my 5Fs, you know, faith, family, finance, freedom, and fun. And if I'm sticking to those 5 things, I'm going to be far better off than getting involved in any other F that's out there.
That's
Stick
right.
to my 5F.
Yeah, that's huge, huge.
And the last thing for me is consistency. And if you want to go back, if you weren't there for the 5Fs conversation, we're going to leave a link down below. Please go back and check out that episode. That is a very powerful episode. It's kind of what our podcast is about. The pyramid structure of the 5Fs that you should give, or the pillars of Fs. And, again, it's at the very bottom is faith, then family, finance, and faith, finance, freedom, and fun. And it's just the kind of the framework for what I do now in my personal life. But the third thing for me is consistency and keeping my schedule on track. As a salesperson who's out on the road, my schedule gets out of whack quick. One day I might be here in Jackson. Like Monday last week, I was in Jackson. Tuesday, I was all the way down on the coast, down in Biloxi, working for the casinos down there. Then on like the very next day, I'm in the casinos up in Tunica, Mississippi, which if you don't know, that is literally the opposite corner of Mississippi. You're almost into Arkansas at that point. And then, I'm back in Jackson, and then I might be over in Louisiana the next day, and then back over to Jackson. So it's kind of all over the place. So it's hard to be consistent. And what's helped me with that is the Brodacious Journal. That has been a key piece of keeping myself on track. And I'm super glad. This is not some crazy plug. I'm being 100% honest with you. My Brodacious Journal is what keeps me on track for the week. It helps me set my goals higher. It helps me keep my 5Fs on check. I literally get my iPad out every day and I scribble through that thing, and I get, I have an iPad so I can set different colors for my pen and, mix and match my colors scheme by what I've got going on. And it really does make a huge difference in my life and what I do.
Yeah. And for those of you who are listening in, you can get that for free. That's just a resource that we give. When you subscribe to our newsletter at brodaciouslife.com, the first email that comes back to you has the PDF, so you can upload it on your iPad for free. So it's been a huge thing. All the feedback we're getting from people is just so positive. So yeah, I'm so glad you threw that out there.
Well, Dr. J, we have, we've kind of listed our barriers and things that are out there. So how do we overcome all of these barriers that are around us?
All right. So here are the ways that I believe that we overcome the barriers. So, and in fact, in the Brodacious Life Journal, there's a week where you take notes about action steps that you can take. So I want you to get out your Brodacious Life Journal and go to the Brodacious notes. And here they are. Here's the things that you can implement this week that you can write down, and of course, get them implemented out over the next 7-day period. And if you don't have them, just write them down on a piece of paper. Again, straight for the Brodacious Journal. Here we go. Number 1, you've got to overcome analysis paralysis, and you do that through the rule of 1% marginal gains. Now, I've got a link to this article that I'll send out in the newsletter by the end of the week for all of you that have subscribed. And here's what the rule of marginal gains are: is some people are like fireworks. They go, and then they come back down to the earth because they had all this energy and everything, trying so hard to just blow up. That the problem is they spend so much energy and effort, they burn out, they don't make it. And burnout is a reason why people can't they're trying so hard to improve. But here's the rule of marginal gains. The rule of marginal gain says, I don't have to go out and try to explode and burn out and do everything else and 10x it and all that other stuff. 10x actually speaks to me. Go Grant Cardone. I like your book. I have to admit, I'm a 10x. But here's the thing. Today, I can improve 1%, and that's the marginal gains. In fact, if I improve every day by 1%, in doing so, I will have achieved over 360% by the end of the year. That's enough to take any person from where they're at today and help them achieve greatness in just a year. Imagine wherever you're at today, being able to improve 365%. And that's the rule of 1%. So if you think, well, I'm not a runner. Okay, get out. Can you walk one lap? That's
Yeah.
1% today. And can I now next that can I walk one lap and 3 steps?
That's where I've been the last couple months. Really, it's kind of I've been doing the trying to learn how to run again. Each week it's about, okay, can I just lower my time by 1% each week? Really, just kind of focusing. I know I can't run a mile straight up, but it's more and more about just taking in a little bit more and more of that mile into my run and building up to a mile.
I love it. And in the law of marginal gains, here's how you plan it out. And this is the reason why we have the to-do lists and everything, the list at the bottom of the Brodacious Journal. It's based on the 1% law of marginal gains. Because the law of marginal gains comes from the idea that if you break down a big goal, whatever your big, hairy, audacious goal, your brodacious goal, and
Rotations
you,
go.
yeah, all you got to do is break it down into really small parts. And the smaller the parts, the better. What is 1% to get there? You can have a huge improvement if every day you know what your goal is and you've broken it down into small parts. And just each week you put in 5 or 6 of those small parts into your do list. Because you have to remember, in our lives or the whole is only the sum of all the small things that we do. And so I'm going to go to the next one, but the 1% law of marginal gains, everything you do
Good one.
every day, you feel stuck. That's okay. Can you move forward? 1%.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Number 2, you got to let things go.
Yep.
Let things go. Bad things are going to happen. The Bible says, it wasn't meant to stay. It was meant to go, and it came to pass. In other words, it didn't come to stay. It came to pass. Good things pass too. That's a part of it. Even in the middle of your greatest moment, be digging that well for when you're thirsty later. That's always an important. But remember, when bad things happen, take in some deep breaths. It's okay to feel a little bad. Give yourself 30 minutes, an hour, or maybe if it's a really bad thing, somebody passes away, give yourself a couple weeks on that one. I mean, that's a traumatic thing. But at some point, you have to let go and let God. Praise Him. Next one, number 3.
Amen.
We're gonna have church.
I love it, man. Keep
Look,
it
find a
rolling.
mentor. We
Yes.
talked about how knowledge and education can be bad, but knowledge and education from someone that has actually done the thing you want to do
Yeah.
can be good. You got to find a mentor. And on our last episode we recorded, we talked about Eric and Tiffany Vogel's book, The Pathfinder's Journey, which it's a huge book. I hope everyone out there has gone to bodaciouslife.com/resources and got that book. It's great. But here's the thing. He has an online thing and I am a part of that. And I actually have a conference call with him on Monday because he's my coach and he's coaching me to doing some things that he's done. And I didn't choose him because he was my friend. I chose him because dude has accomplished a goal that I want to accomplish. Why should I have to figure it all out when there's someone who's amazing and brilliant, has got in the trenches and figured it out? So find you a mentor. Next thing, pros and cons list. Like
Yeah.
I do this all the time for lots of decisions. And usually when I write out a pros and cons list, it's pretty easy to figure out the choice I need to make. We talked about what do you do when you have indecision? There's a lot of great choices and you just can't go forward. This is going to sound unorthodox, but flip a quarter, man. Flip a coin. If you're faced with a lot of good choices and they're all equally good, sometimes you just got to flip a coin and just make a choice and go for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, indecision, it can cost you that ultimate goal that you want. I had an opportunity before I took this current role, I interviewed with 3 other positions at the same time and just really good opportunities, was offered the job on all 3 of those. And if I would have sat back, I could have really lost all 3 of those options. All 3 were really good options compared to what I was currently at the time dealing with. And again, if you need something to help you make a decision, flip a coin, do something. If all of them are just amazing, the grass is greener, either way, you're going to win. Flip a coin and go for it.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and look, beware of anchoring bias. We called something comfort zones earlier, but let's put a scientific word on it. Science.
Science.
It's anchoring bias, and we all have that. We all see the world through the eyes of our life experience. And so be aware that just because it makes you uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's wrong. It could just make you uncomfortable. And the final one is keep chartered goals and ask yourself the question, does this get me closer to my goals? One of the things I had to do this week is I'm also on one of the bigger pockets boot camps for rookie real estate investors. And one of the tasks that we had to do this week in the self-reflection is have a list and write down everything we do by the hour. Everything we do by the hour, which was pretty easy because I was using the Bodacious journal on the side, which was way more thought out. So the bigger pockets one was easy. But I got to the end of that. And at the end, what was interesting to me about the bigger pockets one is when you get to the end, for each task, you had a subcategory and you had to add up the amount of time. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I discovered that on an average day, there is 2 hours a day I spend on things that does not help me accomplish. It doesn't bring me closer to my faith. It doesn't make me closer with my family. It's not making me more free. It's not helping me financially. And if I were honest, it's things that aren't really fun. I just do them because I felt like it was expected of me. And then I
Right.
asked myself the next question. The people that I feel like expect this of me, are they even worth pleasing? I won't go any further down that because that gets us off barriers to self-improvement. But ask yourself, do these things get you closer? So law of marginal gains, let things go, find a mentor, pros and cons list, flip a coin, beware of anchoring bias, and keep charted goals and ask, does this thing get me closer to the goal? And if it does, it's time to improve, baby. What say you?
I just love all of that, man. You really hit it on top of the head, man. So, for me, I love all of those. A lot of those kind of overlap mine. Again, when I like, a lot of times, even when although I still have my Bodacious journal, I almost called it my Bodacious Bible, my Bodacious journal.
That's heresy.
Um, my bad. My Bodacious journal. I still like the David Goggins method from the book Can't Hurt Me, where you physically write it down on sticky notes and you put it in your mirror. I've been working on this piece that I'm working on, and the biggest thing when I went through my depression, the person who I avoided the most was myself. And I would do anything I could not to look myself in the mirror because I knew I was letting that guy down. I was selling that person short by a long shot. So by taking what I want and I'm going to write it down, and again, I'm going to keep my dreams high by physically writing them down and sticking them up to my mirror every day when I brush my teeth, I get out of the shower, anything, I have to look at that and be accountable for what's there. And sometimes you need that. It's very easy sometimes, I think, when you're writing things down in a booklet, and I have this problem at work as well. When I write something down on a to-do list or a goal or something, I can close that book up and it might go over to the corner of my desk throughout the day. But I got to go wash my hands. I got to go do stuff throughout my day. I use the restroom. So to be able to go in there and see my goals in front of me at work, they're on my laptop, or sorry, my desktop screen. I have them sticky noted around it. So my work goals are there, and they're lofty, high goals, far higher than what even corporate sets for me. I'm going to shoot higher than they could have ever dreamed that I can go, because I know I can do it. And I want to do the same thing in my personal life. I like things to be written down where I can't hide them. I can't ball them up and put them in a corner somewhere, or close a booklet or something and just pretend that I wrote it down. My job is done. No, I like it physically written. I've got to face that every single time I look in the mirror, because I'm holding myself accountable for that guy that's looking back at me. The next thing is keeping my 5 F's in check. That comes down to making sure that I'm communicating with my wife. I'm understanding of what's going on around me, and honestly choosing what I'm going to give. Pardon the odd terminology here, but making sure that I'm giving the right F's. There's a great book out there, and I know it's not the most Christian book, but it's called
The Subtle Art.
The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F Word. I'm not going to say it because it's not.
I would never read that book.
I'm not saying I'm the most proud that I've ever read that book, but
It's a
that
great
book,
book, actually.
it really is a good book. And I hate that it has the swear word in it because, it's kind of faux pas for us on a channel where we talk about faith. But it is a book that honestly really did help me get through a really dark time. And that's something I'm going to talk about. And I've just really enjoyed that book. And it kind of helped me flip my mentality of how I chose what was going to be important to me, because what's important to me is not the same thing that's important to my boss. Definitely not the same thing as his boss. So finding what's going to be important for me and my long-term success is what was important. Last thing is consistency. And again, please subscribe to our channel. Go to the newsletter, get the Brodacious Journal, print it if you need to. From that point, you could download it and send it over to Notability. That's the app I use to scribble scrabble in my notepad. You can type it in on a desktop in Adobe if that helps you out, if you're a clicker clacker. I just really enjoy it. It keeps my day on track. It helps me have consistency. If you're not scheduling time, people talk about for the record, people talk about, well, I don't have enough time. You do have enough time. You're just not you're finding other things that are more important for that time. And sometimes that time is watching movies, it's Facebooking, it's Instagramming, and we're all guilty of it, but we're still making time to do that instead of achieving and learning more or working out or reading our Bible or focusing in on any of our 5 F's that are actually going to help make our lives richer. So those are my ways to get through the barrier.
Well, look, here's some action steps that I think our audience can take. Number one, write down your life goals. And in fact, if I don't know, for our video folks, Chef, if you'll give me the power here in a second to screen share, I'll happily share. I actually pulled up my life goals, and I can share those in a second. I've just had 5 pictures. But come up with your life goals, and make sure when you're doing lifestyle design, we've got more episodes coming on this topic, but think about the 5 F's. What do you want your life to be like as regard to faith, family, freedom, finance, fun? Number 2, we talked a lot about using a journal. Look, if you don't want to use the one that we have for you, there's a lot of great ones out there. Go into Amazon, type in journal. 3, when faced with a barrier, think about the 1% rule. Okay, I can't accomplish this, whatever, but what is the 1% that I can do today that gets me closer? When faced with decision, use the tools we have. And if you're analyzing tools, you're stuck because there's a million self-help books. Let's just say it like it is. Yeah. But ask yourself, whatever I'm looking at, does this help me get 1% better? And if so, go for it. And then 5, and finally, is make a choice to move forward. You just have to make a choice to move forward. By the way, you need people on your team. Throw this out there. There's a YouTube video that we have on our YouTube page about networking. I highly suggest you go check it out. And also productivity. There's one that talks about some simple ways that you can overcome maybe being stuck. And that's just productivity in the workplace in general, but it does apply to this topic. Don't get stuck, move forward. What say you, sir?
No, I mean, that's just right on point. So we have put together a bunch of resources to help you. At the end of the day, we're all in this journey together, and we want to be there as partner with you. So we want to give you a PDF copy of the A Brodacious Journal. It's completely free. You just go sign up for the newsletter on our website, abrodaciouslife.com. Of course, there's going to be link in descriptions down below, so don't worry. You don't have to worry about spelling. And this resources will help you, implement lifestyle design for your life, write down your goals, see your 1% gains. It is super important. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We know everything doesn't have to be perfect. It's just got to be 1% better every day. And that's going to snowball into mass change over the course of a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So, but you got to make that 1% change happen now. Yeah. Dr. J, Show it to us, buddy.
Yeah, let me share my goals. And if you're on the podcast version, I'll describe it to you. So I got offered because we talk about finding a mentor. And one of my mentors who I look up to just a lot, he said, if you want to be successful in whatever your goal is in life, you need to know what all this is for and then put a timestamp. So I created a group of pictures of what I would like to see in my life in 2025. And I'm printing this, I'm putting it everywhere. It's on my phone because I want to believe it's going to happen. So here they are. The first thing is if you're on the YouTube, if you're on the podcast version, go to our YouTube page and you can actually see pictures of this, but I'll describe it. The first one's a picture of a house, and that house represents my company. And the picture of the house is not in the ghetto. This picture of this house is a pretty stable house. It's a nice looking house, but by 2025, I want to own 10 of them. That's my rental portfolio, passive real estate. At that point, when I own that and I've hit that goal and I'm working towards that goal, I'll be able to have some of the other freedoms. That's why I put it first. What would I do if I had that freedom? Well, the next picture to the side of that is some people putting down some pavement. See, when my church needs help, I have to give money because I have no time. And that sounds like a great thing, but I'm at a new stage of life where I want to give my time. When they say, hey, we're building this house for this person, I want to be at that church. And I want my pastor to know that when he calls Dr. J, I'm coming to actually be boots on the ground, and I suck at building. But you know what? I'm in the game. I'm going to hit my thumb 1,000 times, but I'm there. I want to make a physical with a difference with my hands. And then the third picture is of a dad walking his little boy. See, when my kids were growing up, I worked 16-hour days. I didn't get the joy of taking my kids to school every day. My wife did that. I missed a lot of PTO. I missed a lot of stuff. But since I'm going to be a 40-year-old dad again this next time around, I want to feel what it's like. I want to know what it's like when my son gets in the car after elementary school. I don't have to ask him how his day went. He's just going to tell me, because it's what we do every day, because daddy picks him up every day. The next one is a flight, but it's not just any airlines. It's British Airways, because we took an overseas trip and it was the most magical thing. Shout out to Viking River Cruise on the Rhine River, like changed my life. But I had to fly on airline miles. We stayed in the lowest possible. What I remember when I got on that British Airways jet to fly over to London, and I looked and saw the first class, what that looked like as I took a right to go down and coach. I want to take my wife on that trip to fly first class when we go. And speaking of travel, there's another one that's a suite of a cruise. I've gone on just over 20 cruises now, but I've never stayed in the nicest suite on the ship. I've never been 3 tiers from that. I always stay on the inside stateroom, or we've had a small balcony a couple times. One time, 2025, I'm going to take a cruise at some point, and I'm going to stay in a suite. And the final one at the bottom one, Chef, this is for you. That is a picture of 2 people doing a podcast, and they're in the same room and they're doing it together and they're creating something that they enjoy doing. And we're separated. We Zoom when we do these sessions. But one day I want to have the time, the freedom, and the financial ability that I can come to Mississippi anytime we want to get together and sit somewhere and do this thing that we love doing. And that's my 2025, man. I wake up every morning. I'm passionate about these things. I'm going to get there.
I love that, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. So we are just super excited that you're here. And again, we have just resources that are available for you, and we would love for you to see them. Again, hop over to abrodaciouslife.com. You'll be able to find more content than even what you're seeing here for our podcast. We host that site over there on YouTube just to put more content and more creation out there for you. If you like it, obviously hit that like, hit that subscribe. And we're super glad that you're here. And we'll see you next time on A Brodacious Life. Hey, you've got to hit either record or end on your side, because you're now the host.